begin. Good afternoon again, everyone. So our topics are learning, memory, and intelligence. So let's begin the session by giving you an attendance code. So do not forget to encode this attendance code on your Google Classroom and do not share it to your classmate. The first code for this morning is LEARN. The code is learn. LEARN. Okay? So our first topic is learning. But anyone, can you define learning? What is learning? Okay, so agreed to Suzette, acquired knowledge that change your behavior. So in psychology, we define learning as a long-term change in behavior that is based on experience. So meaning, there is something happened in the past, now you'd like to change it, and you'll have the learning from it. Okay, so you learn from the experiences, you learn from the past, you learn from your mistakes. And para mas maintindihan natin ang learning, we have two theorists. So first, the picture that is Ivan Pavlov, and the second is B.F. Skinner. So I know you know them, right? So one of they are included in the top 10 famous psychologists who gave a contribution in the field of psychology. But for now, learning ang topic natin ngayon. By the way, Ivan and BF, they are behaviorists. Okay? They are not psychoanalytic, they are not humanistic, they are behaviorism. So again, the psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. So in the study of behavior, we have behaviorists or behavioral theorists like Ivan Pavlov, Skinner, Watson, and Albert Bandura. So let's begin the discussion with their conditioning. So first is the classical conditioning, second is the operant conditioning. So they are very popular because of this. So you learned because of the classical conditioning and you learned because of the operant conditioning. So let's start here. So Ivan Pavlov is a Russian physiologist known primarily for his work in classical conditioning. So it is a form of learning in which reflex responses are associated with new stimuli. Okay, so take note, reflex responses are associated with new stimuli. So according to Pavlov, classical conditioning was made famous by him and his experiments conducted with dogs. So classical conditioning became the basis for a theory of how organisms learn and a philosophy of psychology developed by John B. Watson, B.F. Skinner, and others. Okay, so that is Ivan Pavlov. Naging popular siya because of his experiment to dog. If you remember, we have research specialties or another branch of psychology that deals with animal behaviors, di ba? So that is the comparative psychologist. So here is the experiment of Pavlov. So first, take note of the keyword US or UR. US means unconditioned stimulus. UR means unconditioned response. When you say unconditioned stimulus, this is a stimulus innately capable of eliciting a response. Okay? Unconditioned stimulus. Nakakapag-produce ng response ito. It is a stimulus na pwedeng mag-produce ng response. Whereas the UR or the unconditioned response is innately response elicited by conditioned stimulus. You have the response because of the unconditioned stimulus. Okay? So let's take at this photo. So look at the picture. So according to that, the unconditioned stimulus is the dog food. Okay? That is the US. And then the unconditioned response is the dog na nagsasalivate. Okay? So yes, ganyan lang yung US and then UR. But paano ba nangyari na ang unconditioned response na nagkaroon ng unconditioned response because of unconditioned stimulus. This is because of the NS or the neutral stimulus. So meaning, stimulus that does not evoke a response. In our example, it is a bell. Diba? So nag-bell ka, that is a neutral stimulus. When you say conditioned stimulus or CS, this is a stimulus that evokes a response because it has been repeatedly paired with an unconditioned stimulus. So there is an unconditioned stimulus, you pair it. Ginawan mo siya para maging conditioned stimulus. Dinagdagan mo, you alter the neutral stimulus. Okay? So, nagiget pa natin, di ba? So, ang ginawa sa experiment na to is that Pavlov, he showed some food and rang a bell at the same time. After a while, the dog associated the bell with the food. They would learn that when they heard the bell, they would get fed. Okay? So, again, neutral stimulus is the bell, unconditioned stimulus is the dog food. Okay? So, pinagdikit niya, pinagsama niya, kinondition niya yung aso. Ngayon, dahil nga na-condition na yung aso, ang nangyayari is that just ringing the bell made the dog to salivate. They learn to expect food at the sound of a bell. So see, kanina neutral stimulus ang bell. Pinatunog niya, kinondition ni Pavlov. Ang condition ng aso, sabi niya, pag tumunog ang bell, there will be dog food. Papakainin na ako ng aking amo. Kaya nagsasalivate na yung aso. So ito yung naging popular experiment ni Ivan Pavlov. Classical conditioning. Unconditioned stimulus. Kinonditioned stimulus natin, nagkaroon tayo ng unconditioned response. So do you have question for this experiment? Okay, you understand? Okay, so sige. So since you understand how the dog conditioned because of this, let's understand naman to human. So let's give an example for human. So this is the statement. One day, you go to a doctor to get a shot. She says, don't worry, this won't hurt a bit. So that statement, take note of that. Huwag kang mag-alala, hindi ito masakit. And then gives you the most painful shot you have ever had. Ang sakit ng shot na ginawa ni doctor. So a few weeks later, you go to a dentist for a checkup. He starts to put a mirror in your mouth to examine your teeth and says, don't worry, this won't hurt a bit. So imagine, sinabi na naman yung phrase na yun. So even though you know the mirror won't hurt you, you jump out of the chair and run screaming from the room. Okay? Because yung statement na neutral, naging condition stimulus na. And because of the condition stimulus, nagkaroon ka na ng unconditioned response or conditional response. Okay? Ayan. So when you went to get a shot, the words, don't worry, this won't hurt a bit, became a conditioned stimulus. When they were paired with pain of the shot, the unconditioned stimulus, which was followed by your conditioned response of getting heck out of there. So when you say conditioned response, conditioned stimulus, it is a stimulus that evokes a response because it has been repeatedly paired with an unconditioned stimulus. Conditioned response, a learned response elicited by a conditioned stimulus. Okay? So see, this is the contribution of Ivan Pavlov, classical conditioning. We were conditioned, and then from there, we learned, right? So do you have questions for Ivan Pavlov, classical conditioning? None? Okay, so later you'll give more example of this. None, let's talk about Burhouse Frederick Skinner or B.F. Skinner. So B.F. Skinner introduces operant conditioning. Okay? So operant conditioning is a consequences lead to changes in voluntary behavior. So this is very vital if you are a parent. So the components of operant conditioning are reinforcement and punishment. Okay? So reinforcement and punishment. Tandaan, that is for B.F. Skinner. So let's discuss reinforcement. This one refers to any consequence that increases the likelihood of a particular behavior response. If you want the behavior to happen again, that is reinforcement. Okay? And how would you do that? Of course, you need to do the types of reinforcement. Okay? So the types of reinforcement are positive reinforcer and negative reinforcer. So let's define or let's describe and give example for this. Positive reinforcer, addition of stimulus to increase behavior. So for example, Justin is here, right? So Justin got plot 1. So ang tendency, anong gagawin ni parent? So sasabihin ni parent, you Justin, good job. I am proud of you. So by that statement, that will likely increases Justin's behavior na pagbutihin pa yung pag-aaral. Diba? So another, si Apple, our top 2, naka 1.25. So sabi ng parents niya, so Apple, since naging top 2 ka, bibigyan kita ng pera. Bibigyan kita ng candy. So buy a gadget. Ayan, mahal kita Apple, salamat. Proud na proud ako sa iyo. So yung mga sinabi ng parent na yon, that is a positive reinforcer. Diba? So syempre si Apple, pagbubutihin niya pa yung ginawa niya because of the reward system. Okay? So a big thank you. So as simple as that, it is considered a positive reinforcer. However, negative reinforcer naman is that removal of stimulus to increase the behavior. Kanina, addition of stimulus to increase behavior. Ngayon naman, removal of stimulus to increase behavior. Okay? So, si Carlene. Carlene is also top 2, no? So, she got 1.25. So, sabi ng parent niya, si Carlene, baka medyo mawala ng focus. Kaya ang gagawin ko, aalisin ko muna ang cellphone niya. Okay? But then, i-ensure ko na proud ako sa kanya. Dadagdagan ko yung lamig ng kanyang aircon. Sasarapan ko yung pagkain. Okay? So, inalis yung cellphone. Kasi nga, gusto ni Carlene na makapag-focus. So, that is a negative reinforcer. Okay? Positive and negative reinforcer, also known as reward system. Pero take note ha, dapat alam natin kung paano magbigay ng reward. Kasi ang reward system increases the likelihood to do the behavior. What if mali ang ginawang behavior pero binigyan mo ng reward? So tendency, mauulit yung behavior na yon. Okay? So the next one after reinforcement is punishment. So punishment refers to a consequence that decreases the likelihood of this response. And we have two types, positive punishment and negative punishment. So similar to reinforcement, okay? So when you say positive, addition of stimulus to decrease behavior. Negative punishment, removal of stimulus to decrease behavior. Example, so pag-usapan na naman natin ng grade. So yung ibang classmate mo is nag-failed sa midterm grade. So ang tendency, kailangan silang bigyan ng punishment, right? So ang punishment na dapat natin ibigay is no gadgets allowed for 1 whole week. So yan ang parusa ko sa iyo. Or you are grounded, hindi ka lalabas ng bahay for 1 month. Kailangan mag-aral kang mabuti. Okay? Yes, so yung binanggit ko, no gadgets allowed, that is an example of negative punishment. Example naman for the positive punishment is papagalitan ka ng parent mo. Diba? Hirap na kami dito tapos ikaw hindi ka nag-aaral ng mabuti. So yung statement na yun, that's addition. Diba? So dahil narinig mo yun, ang tendency ayaw mo nang ulitin or magsisipag ka na next time. So sa mga tao naman na nakagawa ng crime, So, syempre, kailangan silang pusasan, kailangan silang ipakulong. So, that's addition of stimulus to decrease behavior. In that way, magtatanda yung mga nakagawa ng mali sa batas. Okay? So, positive punishment and negative punishment. Do you have questions regarding reinforcement and punishment? Question? Okay, so I have a scenario here. Bata pa lang tayo, grade school, elementary school pa lang tayo, ang laging nire-remind sa atin ating mga teacher is, don't say bad words. Right? Naalala niyo yan, bawal magmura, bawal magsabi ng bastos, bawal magsabi ng kung ano-ano. Kasi school, that is our second home. And teachers, they are our second mother or second parent. So that is a reminder na talagang tumatak sa isip ko. Don't say bad words. So from that statement, so syempre, tatatakin sa isip ng bata. Hindi siya magkasabi ng bad words. Now, what if from school, pumunta siya sa bahay? He learned or he or she learned bad words from television, from TikTok, from Facebook, from friends, from family members na sinasabi yun. So, syempre yung bata naiisip yun. Na-instill niya sa mind yun. Pero ang sabi dyan, sabi ng teacher, huwag sasabihin yung bad words. So, okay na yung bata. Now, what if yung isang bata nagmura? Ano ba yung initial na reaction ng inyong mga parent? In general, their reaction is tatawa sila. Matutuwa sila. Di ba? Kasi parang bata-bata nagmumura na. Saan mo natutunan niyan? Ang daming ganon. So, yung simple smile na yon, that is considered a reward for the child. Di ba? So, dahil napangiti ko yung parent ko, that means what I'm doing is correct. What I've said is correct. So, see, naibigay natin yung maling reward sa behavior ng bata. So, ang tendency, uulitin ng bata yung pagmumura or pagsasabi ng bad words. Okay? So, kaya sabi ko, dapat ayusin mabuti ang reward system. And also, ayusin ding mabuti ang pagbibigay ng punishment. So, example, so si Justin, nag-cheat siya. Nag-cheat, di ba? So, ang ginawang punishment ng teacher is, lahat ng klase, lahat ng classmate niya is 0 sa exam. So, mali. Di ba? Maling punishment yun kasi ang gumawa lang ng mali is si Justin, hindi ang buong klase. So, mali na damay-damay ang lahat. Walang ganun. Kasi ang tendency, magagalit sa yung tao kasi binigyan mo siya ng negative or positive punishment. Okay? So, you take note of that. Classical conditioning from Pavlov, operant conditioning from B.F. Skinner. Okay, so questions before we proceed to the next topic? None. Okay, so that's Ivan Pavlov and B.F. Skinner. Now I have here John Watson. So he is a behaviorist. According to him, give me a dozen healthy infants, well-formed, in my own specified world to bring them up in and I'll guarantee to take anyone at random and train him to become any type of specialist I might select. Doctor, lawyer, artist, merchant, chief, and yes, even beggarman and thief. Regardless of his talents, penchants, tendencies, abilities, vocations, and race of his ancestors. So, yan yung sinabi ni John Watson. So, sabi niya, bigyan mo ko ng 12 bata, gagawin ko kung anong gusto kong gawin sa kanya. Yung isa, gagawin kong lawyer, gagawin kong doctor, gagawin kong magnanakaw, gagawin kong pulubi. Kayang gawin ni John Watson yan. My question, paano kaya nasabi ni John Watson ito? Ano yung pinanghuhugutan niya dito? Anyone? Paano niya nasabi yung mga ganyan? Imagine ha, baby. Sabi mo, gagawin ko yung doktor. gagawin ko yung lawyer, gagawin ko yung magnanakaw. Paano? Paano kaya yun? Okay, so agreed. Very good si Justin because of the classical conditioning, because of the operant conditioning. Kasi i-manipulate ka dito di ba? I-manipulate ka na dapat maging ganito ka. Okay? So, yun yung sinasabi ng behaviorism. Ang bata, tabula rasa, walang laman ang isip mo. So, ang gagawin lang ng mga behaviorist or someone, mga parent, friends, and other people surrounded by you, bibigyan ka ng maraming information. Bibigyan ka ng mga dapat gawin. Ngayon, tama o mali, hindi mo siya mag-filter because you are being manipulated by the behaviorist. Okay? Kaya dapat, do not manipulate someone. So, guide them into a good behavior. Dapat tamang behavior ang ituturo natin sa mga bata. Okay? So, other understanding or other response from this, tama yung sinabi ni Justin, blank space or tabula rasa or blank slate ang sabi ni John Locke. Salamat, Justin. Yes, Shaila, are you raising your hand? Tama, totally agree with Shaila. Kung ano yung environment mo, yan na yung magiging magiging values mo, magiging behavior mo. So imagine a family doctor, 'di ba? Lahat mother, father, brothers, sisters and doctors. So ikaw, malaki yung porsyento na maging doctor ka because of the influences from your family. 'Di ba? So kayo ngayon, tingin niyo bakit yung pinili ang psychology? Sinong nag-influence sa inyo? So 'di ba, there is a situation that triggers your decision to take BS in psychology. Okay? Salamat, Justin. Salamat, Shaila May, for your response. Now, are you familiar with the Little Albert experiment? He was a 9-month-old infant who was tested on his reactions to various stimuli. He was shown a white rat, a rabbit, a monkey, various masks, and others. So Albert, described as on the whole stolid and unemotional, showed no fear of any of these stimuli. Okay? So that is little Albert, 9-month-old. So pinresent siya ng iba't ibang stimuli. So pero sabi nga, ano nangyari? On the whole stolid and unemotional. Little Albert was very calm. So walang pakiramdam, walang emosyon, walang takot, wala. Ito lang yung naramdaman ko. These are just stimuli. However, what did startle him and cause him to be afraid was if a hammer was struck against a steel bar behind his head. The sudden loud noise would cause little Albert to burst into fears. So we have a neutral stimulus now. That's a hammer. Ngayon kapag pinupok natin yan, it will produce a sound. And yung sound na stimulus, that will alter little Albert's emotion from calm to angry or to sadness because of that. So when little Albert was just over 11 months old, White Rat was presented. And seconds later, the hammer was struck against the steel bar. So this was done 7 times over the next 7 weeks. And each time, little Albert burst into tears. So by now, little Albert only had to see the rat and he immediately showed every sign of fear. He would cry whether or not the hammer was hit against the steel bar, and he would attempt to crawl away. So this is an example of a classical conditioning from Ivan Pavlov. Now, so there are rats, a monkey. So those are unconditioned stimulus. So nagkaroon ng martilyo, pinukpok. You are presented by this stimuli, tapos dinagdagan mo ng sound. Yung unconditioned stimulus, kinonditioned stimulus mo. So ang nangyari, so si Little Albert kapag nakakita ng dog, ng monkey, ay umiiyak na. Kasi ang thinking niya, merong sound na lalabas kay Albert. Diba? Kanina hindi siya takot pero ngayon natakot na siya kay Little, natakot na siya sa mga stimuli na yon. So I have here the presentation of Little Albert experiment. That's the Little Albert experiment. So what happened to Little Albert after the conduct of the experiment? Yes, Patrick. Okay, so thank you very much, Patrick. So tama yung sinabi ni Patrick, no? Sa simula, animals yung pinakita kay Little Albert. Pero sabi nga, no responses. Pero nung kinondition siya, something happened with the animals and other various stimuli. Nagkaroon siya ng negative emotion, which is nasad siya or nagalit siya or umiyak siya. Okay, so thank you, Patrick. Apple, could you explain what happened to Little Albert in terms of Ivan Pavlov's experiment? Very good, that is correct. So everything is correct except yung the experimenter of this is Watson. Okay? So, ginamit ni Watson yung classical conditioning ni Pavlov. So, that's what happened. Sabi nyo nga, na-develop ang fear, naka-develop ang phobia because of the classical conditioning. So, tama yung sinabi ninyo, di ba? So, anong nangyari? Because si Albert is meron ng fear and phobia, so nagkaroon tayo ng process of generalization. That means, anything na kamukha ng rat, kamukha ng monkey, ng rabbit with fur objects, kinakatakutan na ngayon ni Little Albert. So, same thing kay Santa Claus. Sa mga damit na medyo furry, nakakatakot na. So, see, grabe yung naging experiment kay Little Albert. So, naging generalization. Same thing, di ba? Another example din, kayo mga babae. What if niloko kayo ng mga lalaki during your first love? Siyempre, masasaktan kayo, iiyak kayo, magagalit kayo. And may isip nyo na lahat ng lalaki is manloloko. Diba? That's a generalization. Gine-generalize nyo yung ginawa ng isang tao sa lahat ng lalaki, which is incorrect. Kasi individuals are different. Individuals are unique. Pero syempre, because of our experience, hindi nga natin may iwasan ng mag-generalize. Okay? So, anong nangyari din, the classical conditioning could be used to create a phobia. So, phobia is a irrational fear or specific or intense fear. Over the next few weeks and months, Little Albert was observed, and 10 days after conditioning his fear of the rat was much less marked. This dying out of learned response is called extinction. Okay? However, even after a full month, it was still evident, and the association could be renewed by repeating the original procedure a few times. Okay? So I want you now to introspect. Ano yung fear or phobia nyo ngayon? And anong dahilan bakit kayo nagkaroon ng fear and phobia na yun? So anyone would like to share? Thank you, Justin, Carlene, and Manuel for your answer. Now, let's proceed to this. The observational learning by Albert Bandura. So, according to Albert Bandura, people or individual also learned because of observation. Yes, we agree, di ba? Imagine yung drinking fountain. Paano ba iniinom yun? Di ba? Sabi daw, gaganong ka lang. Tapos meron nang tutulong tubig. Pero, ba't wala tumutulong tubig? So, eventually, nalaman mo na kailangan pa lang may apakan sa baba. Pag may apakan sa baba, merong tutulong tubig. So, based on the observation, natuto ka na. Another, yung mga laser na faucet, pag nasa comfort room kayo, parang, bakit walang lumalabas na tubig sa kamay ko? Sa kabila, meron. So, ang tendency, syempre, alam ko ginagawa nyo, yung mga mata nyo ginagalaw yung ganun, no? Parang, paano niya kaya ginagawa ito? Diba? So, you observe. So, from there, kailangan pala itapat yung kamay sa kulay pula para lumabas yung tubig. So, that's observation learning. Okay? So, kayo, ano yung mga natutunan nyo based on observation? Yes, I also checked in Okada last year, diba? So, pag-open mo ng CR nila, yung toilet bowl nila, kusang bubukas na ganyan, no? Parang wini-welcome ka na, hello, halika, upo ka na dito, ganyan. At may remote pa kung anong plano mong gawin. Kung may iwawash na ba natin, hihinaan ng aircon, ganun kasosyal ang 5-star na Okada. Ayan, salamat Carlene. Nakakahiya, no? Kaya nga sabi natin, huwag niyo ipahiya yung sarili niyo. Observe muna kayo kung paano gagawin. Okay? And then you, Laika. Ba't si Rato? Nung pumasok ako, nasira na. Kailangan pala itap. Diba? Lalo na yung mga bagong card ng MRT ngayon. Diba sa card, merong bilog. So sabi tatap yun. Ito ba? Or patalikod? Pag ganito ba? Pag ganyan. So syempre, pag pang 5 pila ka, gaganon-ganon ka. Uy, doon pala yung butas. So kaya, you learned from the observation. Thank you, Laika. And then you, Alana. Saka thank you sa mga nag-dine sa mga Japanese buffet meals. kung anong gagamitin, right hand ba, left hand ba, or automatic bibig na agad ang gagamitin. Okay? So ayan, talaga namang based on observation, we learn. Kaya nga lang, di ba sabi nga ni John Locke kanina, tabula rasa. So we cannot filter anything na papasok or ma-observe natin. So that's the positive side. Kaya nga lang, mga negative is that, yung mga bata, so they're watching strangers who are smoking. Diba? So smoke lang sila ng smoke. So titigin ng bata, okay, naninigarilyo sila. When I grow up, I want to be like him. Maninigarilyo rin ako. Kasi cool eh. Diba? Nakakalalaking tignan. So yun yung mga nasa thinking nila based on their observation. Pero observation dapat i-filter din natin. This is what you should do. This is not what you shouldn't do. Okay? So, di ba yung before may commercial ang Bantay Bata 163? Kung anong nakikita ng bata, kung anong ginagawa ng... Okay. May commercial ang Bantay Bata 163 before. Kung anong ginagawa ng matanda, ginagawa or gagawin ng bata. So, that's the negative of this observational learning. Albert Bandura is popular on this kind of experiment. So, the Bobo doll experiment. Bobo, this is not means stupid, ha? So, Bobo doll experiment. This is the experiment. So what happened to Bobo doll experiment? So let's introspect now. Di ba sa Philippines meron tayong G, General Patronage, PG, Parental Guidance, SPG, Strong Parental Guidance. It involves drugs, language, violence, sex, what else? Ayun, language. O yan, part yun ng strong parental guidance. So, siyempre, since SPG nga ito, hindi pwede sa bata. Pero, bakit may mga parent na inaalaw ang bata manood ng mga SPG? So, sino may problem? Yung television ba? Yung parent ba? O yung batang nanonood? So, pag-isipan nyo, di ba? Okay? So, lalo na yung mga palabas ngayon, like Provinciano. So, sa Provinciano, it is SPG. Kasi it involves violence. It involves yung mga dahas, baril, Armalite. So yung mga bata, makikita na pwede palang gawin, pwede palang itutok yung baril sa tao at barilin. So without realizing the value of life. May ibang bata rin naman na nanonood ng mga teleserye, mga halikan, may mga bed scene. So of course, those children were not ready for this. Pero na-expose na sila agad-agad. So try to introspect now, ano yung nangyari sa inyo before na napanood nyo or naobserbahan nyo na alam nyong mali pero nagawa nyo pa rin dati kasi akala nyo tama siya. So introspect. Okay, so yung na-experience si Joshua, ginagawa niya yun sa kapwa kasi ito yung na-observe niya. So that time hindi niya pa alam na ito ay tama. That time hindi niya alam na ito ay mali. So later on, he realized na mali pala ito. Okay? So, salamat Shaila and salamat Joshua for your answer. So, this experiment, Bobodal, is the study of aggression. So, titignan natin kung ang bata ba ay mayroong tendency maging aggressive in the future. And based on the video presentation, talaga namang mas aggressive pa yung batang babae, di ba? Kesa sa batang lalaki. So, alam na. Okay? So, joke lang, hindi alam na. So that's the process of generalization again. So that's all for the learning. So let's have an attendance code again. The attendance code now is memory. MEMORY. That is the second attendance code, memory. So our next topic is about memory. So what is memory? So this is means by which we retain and draw on our past experiences to use that information in the present. So anything that happens in your present is already in the past. Okay? It's already in the past. So memory is a process of dynamic mechanisms associated with storing, retaining, and retrieving information about past experiences. Ulitin ko ha. So anything that happens to your present is already in the past. Hindi nyo mahahabol yung present. So kahit sabihin ko na memory, o sabihin ko na ngayon, it happened in the past. Kasi tapos na, nabanggit ko na yung memory. Now, tignan natin. Yung learning sa napag-aralan nyo kanina, let's see kung nasa memory nyo ito ngayon. Or kung nasaan man. Okay? Tignan natin kung anong mangyayari. So according to cognitive psychologists, they have identified the 3 common operations of memory. First is encoding, after that storage, and then after that is retrieval. So each operation represents a stage in memory processing. When you say encoding, this is converting information for in which it will be retained in the memory. So any stimulus, you will just convert it and encode it to your brain. Storage, holding information in memory for later use. So dyan ka muna. So ang ginagawa ng iba, after dyan ka muna, hindi na binabalikan. Diba? Ang tendency tuloy, nakalimutan na. Ay, meron nga palang learning, nakalimutan ko. The third stage is retrieval. So, recovering information from storage to memory. So, let's compare this encoding, storage, and retrieval to a computer desktop. So, of course, you encode it using the keyboard. You store in the CPU, you retrieve through the monitor. But in humans, we encode through our human senses. We store in our storage, and we retrieve through our mouth by saying, di ba? Ilabas kung ano yung mga na-store sa ating brain. Take note, encoding, storage, and retrieval. And to explain this, we have the 3 traditional model of memory. Number 1, sensory memory, the short-term memory, and the long-term memory. SM, STM, or LTM. Okay? So let's define the sensory memory. So the first normally unconscious stage of memory, which holds an exact record of incoming information for a few seconds or less. As in, sabihin natin 1 second or 2 seconds lang, nandyan pero biglang mawawala. So an example of this form of memory is when a person sees an object briefly before it disappears. Once the object is gone, it is still retained in the memory for a very short period of time. Nandyan lang siya. Encoded, STM, tapos agad-agad wala. Tingnan nga natin. Kanina, nung pinindot ko yung slide na to, may lumabas na object. Ano yung naalala niyo object na lumabas? Ang galing naman ng sensory memory ni Justin. So what else? Ano pa yung nakita niyo? Parang droplets na rin. Kasi nga, ang bilis, di ba? Hindi natin masyado nakita. Yung iba, meron ba kayong nakitang objects? Okay, yung iba wala. Parang, sir, saan mo pinarasent yun? Di ba? So that's sensory memory. Few seconds or less. Ngayon, yung mga nakita nyo ngayon, syempre, mamaya-maya, makakalimutan nyo na. Pero syempre, kung gusto nyo alalahanin nyo. Pero hindi naman sa related sa buhay. So, huwag nyo nang alalahanin. Okay? Yung mga nakita nyo kanina. So, the two most studied types of sensory memory are iconic memory. This is visual and echoic memory or sound. So, para sa mga hindi nakakita, ito yung pinakita ko kanina. Ayan, o diba? Biglaan. So, sa iba, hindi nakita. Sa iba, na-retain lang yan ng agad-agad. So, the sensory memory. Now, let's go to the STM or the short-term memory. This one, you hold small amounts of information in our conscious awareness for about a dozen seconds. Our short-term memory is encoded. It is from the images, using the video, using my gestures, using my mouth. Ayan, nakikita niyo yan. You encoded that. But more often encoded phonetically. So, may ibang tao na active ang listening kesa sa visual. Okay? So, short-term memory. All of the information happen in your past, ilagay mo siya sa yung brain. Nasa short-term memory. Pero, it has no assurance na magtatagal ito sa memory mo. So, you need effort para mapatagal ang short-term memory. Now, look at this. Do you know the magic number? What do you think is the magic number? Is it 8, 5, 1, 7, 4, 9, or 3? What's the lucky number? Sorry, not the lucky, the magic number. O sige, so the lucky number is
9.
7. Why 7? Kasi nasa gitna. Why 7? According to George Miller, he found that short-term memory is limited only to number 7 plus or minus 2. So that is 5 or 9 information bits. Ito lang yung kaya ng ating short-term memory, 7 information bits. Information bits, these are numbers, letters, words, or phrases. So, a good example here is yung telephone number. Di ba ang telephone number is 7 digits? 509-1017. Di ba? 7. Ito lang yung kayang tandaan ng short-term memory natin. Plus 2 or minus number 2. Now, look at this number. 586630828631885. So, I'll give you 10 seconds to memorize these numbers.
586630828631885.
Okay, ayan, di ba? So, kamusta na yung any plans for the Christmas? We have a Christmas party, ha? So, magpe-prepare kayo dyan. So, sana may kumanta, sana may sumayaw. Di ba? So, patagalin pa natin ng konti para from the sensory memory, maalis na agad sa STM ninyo. Okay, so sige, ano yung numbers? May naalala ba sa numbers? Yes, Cheska?
58663 lang po yung naalala ko, sir.
Okay, 5866630. Ano kayang reason bakit konti lang yung nabanggit naalala ni Cheska?
Bilis daw mag-slide, sir.
Exactly, mabilis.
Joke lang po.
Hindi, no, that is correct.
Daming
Mabilis.
number
Kasi sensory memory eh. Sobrang bilis. Mabilis, ang daming numbers. Sumika pa after i-reveal ko ano yung number. Tapos, ang dami pang environmental barriers. So, yun ang tendency, no? Kaya ang hirap i-memorize yung ganitong kahirap na numbers. Pero sabi nga ni George Miller, possible na 2, 4, 6, hanggang 8 lang yung ma-memorize mo. 5, 8, 6, 6, 3, 0, 8. Possible na hanggang doon lang yung kaya ng short-term memory. Now, itong test na ginawa natin is the digit span. Akalain mo meron tayong digit span. Ita-test kayo dito eh. So, paano mag-administer ng digit span? So, sasabihin na administrator, gagayahin mo kung anong sasabihin ko. So, Carlene, gayahin mo ko ha after. 5, 8, 6, 6, 3, 5, 8, 6, 6. You, Carlene.
5, 8, 6, 6.
Okay? 5, 8, 6, 6, 3, 0, 8, 2, 8, 6, 3, 1, 8, 5.
5, 8, 6, 6, 3, 0, 8, 2, 8, 6, 3, 1, 5.
Ayan. Naku, talaga namang grabe ang kanyang sensory memory. Ayan. So, ganoon ang pag-administer ng digit span. So, another Carlene, sabihin mo naman backward. 5, 8, 6.
5, 8, 6.
Backward. You say it backwards.
5, 8, 6, 8, 5.
Okay, next. 6, 3, 0, 8, 2, 8.
Ano, sir?
Ayan. So, itong ginagawa nating digits pa na ito ay part of intelligence test. So, 3 consecutive error, stop na. Proceed to the next. Kasi dito, titingnan natin kung mataas ba yung level ng digit span mo. And overall, makikita natin yung IQ ninyo. Okay? So, salamat Carlene sa example. Next, this one. Please memorize this in 10 seconds. So, sinong gusto magsabi? Sino? Test natin ang galing ng memory nyo. Shaila? Shaila, kamusta ka na, Shaila?
Sir.
Any plans for Christmas, Shaila? Nakalimutan na ba rin, Shaila, yung mga numbers? And letters pala.
Sir.
Kwentuhan muna tayo, Shaila. What happened?
Ang gara ni Sir.
Okay. So, siyempre, itong ginagawa ko, another...
Okay lang, sir.
Sige, Shaila, go. What's the number? Letters.
TVIB MUS CYNCA.
Okay. So, sige. Thank you. Shaila. Nakita ko si Shaila parang may preno, no? Sabi niya, TV, IB, M. May preno siya, no? Next, Charlie.
Ano, sir? TVIVMUSNYMCA.
Ayan. Pakiulit, Charlie?
TVIVMUSNYMCA.
Okay, sabi ni Charlie, TVIVMUSNYC. Diba, ba't paputol-putol? So, kasi yung ginagawa nyong yan is chunking. We call it chunking. We chunk the information bits para mas madaling tandaan. So what you did, Shaila and Charlie, is correct. So mas madali, TV, IBM, USN, YMCA. Diba? By chunking, mabilis nating ma-memorize ang mga information bits. Compared to this, TV, IBM, USN, YMCA. Ang bilis, diba? So, this is another technique for you. Chunking. Okay, so mag-chunk na kayo nung mag-chunk. So, another is this, maintenance rehearsal. So, ito yung ginagawa niyo, binubulong-bulong nyo. TV, IBM. Pina-practice nyo para ma-retain sa memory. Para magstay siya sa short-term memory. And when you say elaborative encoding naman, encoding that links new information with existing memories and knowledge. So example, one of the sign and symptom of depression is napapabayaan ang katawan natin, di ba? So ang tendency, kapag meron kang narinig na new information na kapag may depression ka, hindi ka na naliligo minsan. So yung hindi ka na naliligo minsan, ilalagay mo sa brain mo kasi pagsasamahin mo. So correct, ang people with depression, sometimes hindi na sila naliligo. Kasi nga, wala na silang drive na ayusin yung sarili nila. Diba? So sabi ni Apple, pag-exam, ganyan mag-memorize. Kaya, bumubulong-bulong pa kayo. Describe, understand, predict, control. Describe, understand, predict, control. O, ganyan kayo mag-memorize, di ba? So, anything, kung anong technique ninyo, pwede nyong gawin, basta ma-retain siya sa inyong short-term memory. Others, gusto ng maintenance rehearsal. Others, ayaw ng chunking. Others naman gusto ng elaborative encoding. It depends kasi individuals are different. We learned differently. So kayo ang bahala. Hanapin nyo ang technique na para sa inyo. So for this, the long-term memory. So this one, used for relatively permanent storage of meaningful information. Take note, permanent. And we have two types of the declarative memory. The semantic memory and the episodic memory. When you say semantic, these are the names of colors, the sound of letters, capital of the countries, and other basic facts acquired over a lifetime. So, kumbaga, factual, di ba? Factual knowledge. Kapag naman episodic memory, personal experiences that are linked with specific time and place. So, if I ask you, who is the third president of the Philippines? So, that is the semantic memory. Okay? So what happened to your graduation last year? So that is episodic memory. Okay? So that's the difference. Semantic, facts, episodic, episodes that happen in your life. And we have the two types of long-term memory, declarative and procedural. So similar to semantic, declarative is a long-term memory containing specific factual information. So what is your name? How old are you? Where is your address? So anything, these are declarative memory. Kapag naman procedural, long-term memories of condition responses and learned skills. Marunong ka magbisikleta, you know how to cook, you know how to organize your books, you know how to make your assignment. So procedural memory. Para mas madaling tandaan, declarative is a noun, procedural is a verb. Diba? So that's the two types of long-term memory. So ito yung kanina, just to summarize, sensory store, capable of storing relatively limited amounts of information for a very brief periods. Short-term store, capable of storing information for somewhat longer periods but of relative limited capacity. So 7. Long-term store, very large capacity, capable of storing information for a very long periods, perhaps even indefinitely. Okay? Who wrote Hamlet? Yung taga doon?
William Shakespeare.
William Shakespeare.
Very good. William Shakespeare. Alam niyo yung process na ginawa ninyo? We call it recall. So, to supply or reproduce a memorized information with a minimum of external cues. Actually, wala nga tayong cues na binigay eh. Question lang. Pero ang ginawa ninyo, nag-recall kayo. So, in psychology, nilabelan natin yung ginawa nyo. So, we call it recalling. Now, this. So, I want you again to memorize this. Bread, apple, soda, ham, rice, lettuce, mustard, cheese, oranges, ice cream, crackers, flour, cake, and eggs. Yes, anyone? Sinong gusto mag-volunteer na sabihin yun?
Nabusog lang ako, sir.
Oo nga, nakakabusog lang. So anyone, ano yung mga naalala niyong mga food ingredients na nabanggit natin? Yes, Cheska. Cheska, kumusta ka na, Cheska?
Okay lang po, sir.
Any
Nakaupo.
plans for Christmas?
Wala po. Wala pa po.
Wala pa. O sige na nga. So, pakiulit or pakisabi ang mga information bits na narinig mo kanina.
Bread, apple, ham, cheese, mustard. Yun lang, sir.
Okay, sabi niya, bread, apple, ham, cheese, and mustard. Ayan, di ba? So, naku, parang mali tayo ha. Ayan na. So, okay, so thank you, Cheska. This example is papangalanan natin or lalabelan natin serial position effect. So this one, so there is a tendency to make the most errors remembering in the middle items of an ordered list. So ang tendency, ang mangyayari dyan, ang maalala nyo lang ay bread, apple, soda, flour, cake, eggs. Yung mga nasa gitna, makakalimutan nyo. Kasi ang dami-dami, di ba? So, una at huli lang yung maalala nyo, yung gitna, hindi masyado. And we label it serial possession effect. I-relate natin sa social psychology. In social psychology, meron tayong tinatawag na recency effect. So, ang recency effect meaning, kung ano yung pinaka-recent na nangyari, ito lang yung maalala mo sa taong yun. So, example, napakabait niya for 20 years. Pero kahapon, meron siyang pinagalitan. So, ang mangyayari, ay, ganyan pala siya, masama pala siya. Because of the recent things that happened, na-judge natin siya without understanding the whole experiences, the whole lifespan. Okay? So, the serial possession effect. Now, ito, madalas katanungan natin to. Why do we forget? Kung gusto nyo baguhin natin, gawin natin, bakit hindi ko siya makalimutan? Ayan. So, why do we forget? So, first reason is, yes? Okay, first reason is encoding failure. Meaning, hindi nyo masyadong na-encode ng tama. Hindi nyo na-encode sa brain nyo ng maayos ang information bits. Kaya ang tendency, makakalimutan nyo. Example, during online classes. So, yung iba dyan, nagkaroon ng encoding failure. Kasi walang notes, hindi nanood ng recording, walang PowerPoint, hindi ni-review. Ang tendency, nakalimot ka because encoding failure. Another reason is interference. So this one, tendency for new memories to impart retrieval of older memories. So after the introduction to psychology, meron kayong understanding the self. Kasi syempre hindi kaya ng brain ko, kailangan ko magtapon ng iba. So ang tendency, itapon mo yung learning kanina. Paltan mo ng self from the perspective of philosophy. Diba? So iyon. Another reason is interference. Another reason is this, repression. Through repression, memories are held out of consciousness. So normally yung mga bata, anything that happened in our past, sometimes or oftentimes, bigla na lang natin nakakalimutan. Nakalimutan nyo na, oo nga pala, no, napadapa nga pala ako doon. Nakasugat nga pala ako doon. And another, may iba ring mga, for example, rape victims during childhood. So since this is traumatic, nakalimutan na nila ng kusa. Habang lumalaki, okay na sila. Okay? So another reason why we forget, memory decay. So nabulok yung information. Kaya nakalimutan nyo. Another, cue-dependent forgetting. So, baka nakalimutan nyo yung information bits, pero mariretrieve mo siya kapag binigyan ka ng mga cue or mga clue. Okay? And then the last one is suppression. Ito yung favorite ng mga nangungutang. So, umutang ba ako sa'yo? Kinalimutan ko na kasi yan eh. Diba? Pinilit mong kalimutan yung bagay. So, opposite ng repression, ang repression, kusang nakalimutan. Suppression, pinilit kalimutan. Okay? So, that's how we forget. Okay? So, sana walang makalimutan. Baka pag nagpa-exam tayo, so enumerate the reasons why individuals forget. Nakalimutan nyo pala ito, no? Ayan. So, sige. Now, let's talk about this. We're almost done. Explicit memory and implicit memory. Explicit, ito yung memories na alam nyong meron kayo that you consciously retrieve. For example, when was your birthday? So, March 8th. So, alam ko yun eh. So, kaya mabilis ko siyang nare-retrieve. Implicit memory naman, a memory that does not know exist. So, a memory that is retrieved unconsciously. So, sometimes nakukuha mo siya agad-agad nang hindi mo iniisip na, ay, alam ko pala to. Diba? So, example, sa math, sa algebra, may formula kayo. Hindi mo siya alam, pero nung kinumpute mo, nakuha mo yung tamang sagot. Diba? So, that's included in your implicit memory. Pero syempre, hindi lahat positive. Let's talk about the deficiency in memory. Familiar with amnesia? Yan, di ba? Amnesia is a severe loss of explicit memory. So, normally, ang sinasabi na amnesia, sino ako? Sino kayo? Bakit ako nandito? Anong ginagawa ko dito? Yan ang may mga amnesia. And we have 3 types of amnesia. Retrograde, anterograde, and infantile amnesia. Retrograde, individuals loses their purposeful memory for events prior to whatever trauma induces memory loss. Okay? Before nagkaroon ng trauma. Anterograde amnesia, ability to remember events that occur after traumatic events. Okay? Retrograde, before the accident or traumatic incident. Anterograde, after the traumatic incident. Now, the infantile is the inability to recall events that happened when we were very young. So, parang repression ito. Diba? So, siyempre, hindi naman lahat maaalala natin during childhood. May iba talaga doon na nakakalimutan natin. And then this one, another is Alzheimer's disease. So, disease of older adults that causes dementia as well as progressive memory loss. So, dementia, intellectual function that is severe enough to impair one's everyday life. So, para mas madaling tandaan, what's the difference between amnesia and Alzheimer's disease? So, ang amnesia, nakakalimutan ang declarative memory. Ano nga ba yung declarative memory? Nakalimutan nyo na din. These are the nouns. So, sino ako? Taga saan ako? Nakakalimutan nyo yung nouns, yung factual information. Pero, ang Alzheimer's disease, nakakalimutan niya yung declarative memory and procedural memory. Procedural, ito yung verb, di ba? Kaya, yung mga merong Alzheimer's disease, hindi alam ang pangalan, hindi alam sa nakatira, hindi alam ang CR, hindi alam paano magluto, hindi alam kung paano umihi or dumumi. Di ba? Kasi nakalimutan na nila yun. Okay, amnesia, they forgot the declarative memory. Alzheimer's, they forgot declarative and procedural memory. Mas magkakaroon kayo ng detailed explanation dito sa mga susunod na subjects. Like abnormal psychology, ha? Third, nakakalimutan din po ba nilang magsalita? In some cases, yung iba nakakalimutang magsalita. Nabubulol or nakakalimutang gumamit ng ibang mga words. Kasi parang baby na sila eh. Wala na akong maalala. Ganun yung mga merong Alzheimer's disease. So let's have another attendance code. The third attendance code is intelligence. INTELLIGENCE. Sir, pakiulit po. No, syempre intelligence. That's the third code for this afternoon. Okay? Now, look at this. Mnemonic. Have you heard about this term? This is a
Yes
psychological
po.
jargon words. Yes. Justin, what is this? Mnemonic.
Yung ano po, yung sa Panboys po, yung ano, yung parang may sarili tayong ano, para ma-memorize natin yung isang sequence. Kumbaga, may sarili tayong way kung paano natin tatandaan yung mga yung gusto nating kabisaduhin.
Yes, ang galing talaga ni Justin, no? So that's mnemonic. This is a device, helping device para mas madali nyo matandaan ang information bits. So, let's have the first example. Okay, so familiar with this? The Roy G. Biv. So, this is the, in order, the color in the rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Diba? Salamat kay Roy G. Biv. Kasi kung walang Roy G. Biv, mahirap tandaan. Ano bang nauna? Blue ba o yellow? Diba? So, another mnemonic is this. My very educated mother crying just served us 9 pizzas hitting my esophagus. What is this? Letter M, letter V, letter E, letter M, letter C. This is the order of sige na, later ko i-reveal kasi baka hindi ako sigurado. So, later na yung second mnemonic device natin. So, the third one is the PEMDAS. So, di ba? PEMDAS is the parenthesis, exponents, multiply, divide, add, or subtract. It should be in order. Di ba? Kaya nga PEMDAS. So, sabi naman ni Laika, Dupsi. O, di ba? Meron na kayong other mnemonic device. Describe, understand, predict, and control. So, another one, mnemonic. Alam niyo to? Kapag merong buto, merong 31 yung month. So, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. O, di ba? So, hindi na kayo titingin sa calendar. Uy, meron pang 31 yung May. O, check mo na lang. January, Feb, March, April, May. Uy, merong 31 ang May. Okay? So, mnemonic device. So, now, pag-usapan natin ngayon, what is your mnemonic device? So, ayan. Thank you very much for participating dito sa ating mnemonic devices. Okay, so we can do this in 15 minutes. So, kayang-kaya natin yan. Intelligence. Intelligence, it has no universal accepted definition. However, many definitions of intelligence emphasize the ability to think abstractly, the ability to learn, and the ability to adapt to the environment. Ito yung tinanggap na definition ng intelligence. This one. So, the global capacity to act purposely, to think rationally, and to deal effectively with the environment. So, this one is defined by David Wexler. So, sometimes narinig natin ang bobo mo naman. Bobo ka ba? Diba? Diba naman nag-smart shaming. So, we have two types of intelligence then here. The crystallized ability and the fluid ability. When you say crystallized, higher order factors of intelligence conceived by Cattell. Cattell is a trait personality theorist. It refers to the intellectual capacities obtained through culture-based learning. Kapag naman fluid ability, it refers to a person's genetically based intellectual capability. So kung yung parent mo ay cum laude, summa cum laude, magna cum laude, posible na maging matalino ka at nakuha mo sa parent mo. Ang tawag natin doon ay fluid ability. Ngayon, kung yung parent mo naman ay hindi nakapag-aral ng high school, hanggang elementary lang, pero ikaw ay umabot ng cum laude sa college, ibig sabihin, crystallized ability na yon. You learned because of the experiences, because of the hard work, because of your perseverance. Okay? So, fluid and crystallized. So, yan yung pinag-iba. Namana at ginawa mo sa sarili mo. So, we have the types of intelligence, marami. So, first one, naturalist. So, understanding living things and reading nature. Meron bang naturalist dito? Ako, parang wala. Mga plantito-plantita ata sila. Sa musical naman, you're into music. Logical, mathematical, existential. This means tackling the questions of why we live and why we die. Normally, ang mga existentialist, mga psychologists, mental health professionals, priests, di ba? And then, for the interpersonal, this one, sensing people's feelings and motives. So, parang feeling mo medyo nalulungkot siya. Di ba? Ayan, interpersonal skills yan. Bodily kinesthetic, ayan, sa mind and body. Linguistic, about language, English, and intrapersonal, understanding yourself with what you feel and what you want, and spatial, visualizing the world in 3D. So, kaya hindi nyo manasabi na ang isang tao ay bobo. Kasi, sa types of intelligence na yan, meron ka. 'Di ba? So, hindi ka bobo sa English. Pero, sabihin mong bobo ka sa English, pero you're into logical mathematical. So, hindi ka bobo in general. So, you are good in yung mga sobrang galing makipagkaibigan, ayan, interpersonal skills yan. Ang galing nilang makadetect ng emotion or feelings ng ibang tao. Or kung kaya mo namang mag-solve ng sariling problem, kinakausap mo lagi yung sarili mo, that's intrapersonal. So, very important din ang intrapersonal. Okay? So, these are the types of intelligence. This is the top 2 or the most popular intelligence scale. So, WAIS 4. Right now, ang recent edition is WAIS 5. This is Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. David Wechsler, siya yung nag-define ng intelligence kanina. Ang WAIS 4 ay ina-administer sa 18 years old hanggang 65-year-old or hanggang 70-year-old. Okay? Meron tayong pambata na Wechsler. Wechsler Intelligent Children Scale. WISC yung sa kanila. Okay? So ano bang, and then another one is the Stanford Binet Intelligence Scales. Binet ha, not Binet. So these two, the top intelligence scale na meron sa Philippines na talaga namang very reliable, valid, and credible. So, ang Wechsler natin is overall intelligence score that can be separated into performance score and verbal score. So, just to give you an update or information, ito yung itetest sa inyo sa WAIS. Your vocabulary, the similarities, arithmetic, digit span, information, comprehension, letter number sequencing, picture completion, digit symbolic coding, block design, matrix reasoning, picture arrangement, symbol search, and objects assembly. After i-administer sa inyo itong test na to, finally, you will have your IQ. For the Stanford Binet, this one provides a score for fluid reasoning, knowledge, quantitative reasoning, visual spatial processing, and working memory. Yields a single overall intelligence score. Ang mini-measure ng Stanford Binet is verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, abstract visual reasoning, and short-term memory. So, all of this. Okay? So, ito yung mga example set ng questions. O, diba? Sa iba, hirap na hirap yan. Actually, hirap na hirap akong sagutin itong mga ganitong klaseng mga puzzle. So, mahina ako sa mga spatial intelligence. And then here, ayan o, talaga namang ako, nung nakita ko, anong nangyari? Bakit nagkaganyan? Ba't may mga star? So, may mga equivalent points pala yan, score pala yan. So, I am not good into logical mathematical din. Kaya, talaga namang kinakabahan ako pag may mga ganyang test na dumadaan sa akin. So, mahirap. And of course, may experience nyo yung mga ganyang klase. So, IQ, intelligence quotient. How will you have this? So, dividing mental age by chronological age and multiplying by 100 gives you an IQ. For the deviation IQ, measuring high or low a person's correlatives to his or her own age group gives a different form of IQ. So let's say this is your IQ and i-compare nila ito. Is this suitable for your age or not? Mababa ba ito or mataas sa age mo? And then here, mental giftedness. So individuals who score above 130 on IQ test are often identified as gifted. Wow, di ba? Gifted kayo kapag nakakuha kayo ng ganyang score. And another one is intellectual disability. So a person with mental abilities of far below average is identified as intellectual disabled. So remember, we're not using mental retarded, we're using intellectual disability na. Or another is developmental delay or global developmental delay. So ito yung kanina. So when you say chronological age, this is your age. And then mental age, this one according to Binet, notion that individuals certain age should have mastered certain abilities. That dito, ito yung dapat na alam mong information. Ito dapat yung score mo. This is your mental age. Now, paano natin makukuha yan? Ang IQ, as mentioned earlier, mental age over or divided by chronological age times 100. So, syempre, if you wanted to see your IQ, kailangan nyo mag-take ng WAIS or SB or any other intelligence skill na available ang school, ang guidance counselor, or kung sino mang available na may ganong products. Okay? So, alam niyo ba IQ ninyo? Now, I have a question. Why do you think we conduct psychological assessment? So, this one is for psychometrician, psychologist, and psychology major. So, what do you think? Why we conduct psychological assessment? Specifically, standardized. When you say standardized, this has objective type. May tamang sagot. Okay? So, sa tingin nyo, why? Because we need to see the ability, the job-related skill, the personality traits, and job performance. Kailangan nating ma-check lahat yan. So, if you are an HR, dapat lahat yan mataas. Okay? Kung may mababa naman, ask yourself, mau-work pa ba natin to? Kasi kung hindi mo siya isasama sa candidate for na-i-hire. Diba? Okay, so what's this? So, energizer na tayo o game. So, what's this? I have their clues for you. Example is the letter. So, nakalagay dyan example. So, dear director, this is to recommend Carlene because she was a great student. Yes, Manuel.
Recommendation letter po.
Yes, recommendation letter. Impressive. Next.
Graduate.
Education. Awesome. Porque may sombrero, akala nyo graduate na agad. Okay. Next one.
Knowledge po.
Yes, knowledge. Amazing. Laptop.
Ability.
Yes, ability. Spectacular. Kala ko laptop eh.
Skill.
Phenomenal. Skills. Correct. How about this?
Experience.
Yes, incredible.
Eternity.
Personality po.
Personality po.
Stunning. Yes, personality. Lahat yan, kailangan ma-perfect or mataas para i-hire sa trabaho. So that's the purpose of our psychological assessment. So let's have an open forum. If you want additional inputs, questions, clarifications, we'll entertain it. Yes, anyone? Open forum. So our last attendance code is, so we have 4, no? Our last code is December. 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 That is the 4th code for today. So let's continue the discussion on GC. And everybody has a brain, so use it wisely. Okay? So sige, so thank you very much. I'll see you again for another topic and another asynchronous session. So thank you so much. Leave Jesus in our hearts forever. Thank you, and goodbye. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.